The salt air always hits me first, sharp and sweet, carrying the memory of 100 childhood summers. As we pulled into the gravel driveway, the crunch beneath the tires sounded exactly as it did when I was 10, when my brother and I would race to the porch, desperate to claim the best bedroom. The house stood there, weathered but proud, its white paint peeling in the same places, the blue shutters faded but familiar. I glanced at my mother beside me, her eyes shining with anticipation, and I felt a pang of guilt so deep it almost took my breath away. Have you ever kept a secret from someone you love, thinking it was for their own good? That's where I found myself, clutching the car keys a little too tightly, forcing a smile as I said, "Mom, doesn't it feel like nothing's changed here?" She laughed, the sound echoing off the porch, and for a moment I wished I could freeze time. But beneath the nostalgia, a knot of anxiety twisted in my stomach. If I'd known what that weekend would become, I might never have opened the front door. The truth was waiting for us inside, silent and heavy, and I was the only one who knew it was there. I wish I could say I was just nervous about the drive or the weather, or even the way the house might have changed after all these years. But the truth was so much heavier than that. As I helped Mom carry her bag up the steps, I kept glancing at the for sale sign, now hidden in the garage, tucked behind old beach chairs and a rusted rake. I'd moved it myself, hands shaking, hoping she wouldn't notice the fresh patch of dirt where it had stood. Every step I took inside felt like a betrayal, each familiar creak of the floorboards echoing the secret I carried. The house was more than just wood and paint. It was the backdrop to every important moment of my childhood, the place where we celebrated birthdays, mourned losses, and found comfort in each other's company. I could still hear the laughter from long ago summers, the clatter of dishes after big family dinners, the quiet hush of early mornings when I'd sneak out to the porch with a book. This house was my mother's heart, her sanctuary after my father died, the one place she felt truly at home. And I had sold it. I hadn't meant for it to happen this way. The decision had come after months of late-night phone calls with my brother, endless discussions about money, about what was practical, about how much longer we could keep up with the repairs. We told ourselves we were doing the right thing, that Mom would understand, that she'd be relieved not to worry about the leaky roof or the rising taxes. But standing there, watching her run her hand along the banister, I realized how naive we'd been. This wasn't just a house. It was the last piece of our family's story. I tried to act normal, to laugh at her jokes and help her unpack, but my mind kept racing ahead to the moment she'd find out. Would she cry? Would she be angry? Would she ever forgive me? I caught myself studying her face, searching for any sign that she suspected something was wrong. But she was just happy to be back, humming as she opened the windows, letting the sea breeze fill the rooms. That first night I lay awake listening to the waves, the guilt pressing down on me like a weight I couldn't shake. I thought about all the times I'd come to her with my own heartbreaks, how she'd always known the right thing to say. Now I was the one keeping secrets, and it felt like I was betraying everything she'd ever taught me about honesty and love. I kept replaying the conversation in my head, trying to find the right words, but nothing sounded right. How do you tell someone you've taken away the one place they feel safe? How do you explain that you did it out of love, even if it doesn't feel that way? I knew the truth would come out eventually. Secrets like this never stay hidden for long. What happened next changed everything I thought I knew about my family. I just didn't realize how much we all had to lose. The next morning, sunlight poured through the kitchen windows, painting golden stripes across the old wooden table. Mom was already up, humming to herself as she brewed coffee, her favorite mug chipped but cherished cradled in her hands. She looked so content, so at home, that for a moment I almost convinced myself everything was fine. But every laugh felt like a lie, every smile a mask I struggled to keep in place. As I watched her move through the kitchen, I was hit with a wave of memories. I saw myself at 8 years old, sitting at that same table, legs swinging, waiting for pancakes. I remembered the way Dad would sneak chocolate chips into the batter when Mom wasn't looking, and how we'd all end up giggling when she pretended to be surprised. The house was alive with echoes of those days, sticky fingers, sandy feet, the sound of the screen door slamming as we raced outside to the beach. It was more than nostalgia. It was a reminder of everything we stood to lose. Mom poured me a cup of coffee and sat across from me, her eyes bright. "It's good to be back, isn't it?" she said, her voice soft with happiness. I nodded, forcing a smile, but my heart was pounding. I wanted to tell her the truth, to blurt it out and get it over with, but the words stuck in my throat. I kept thinking, maybe I could wait just a little longer. Maybe I could give her one more perfect day. Later, my brother arrived with his wife and their 2 kids. The house suddenly filled with noise and energy. The cousins ran straight to the bunk room, arguing over who got the top bunk, just like we used to. My brother caught my eye as he set down their bags, his expression serious. He pulled me aside, away from the laughter and chaos. "You have to tell her before someone else does," he whispered, his voice low and urgent. "It's not fair to keep her in the dark." I looked away, unable to meet his gaze. "I know," I said, my voice barely audible. I don't want to ruin this for her. Not yet." He shook his head, frustration clear on his face. "It's already ruined, don't you see? The longer you wait, the worse it'll be." His words echoed in my mind as the day went on. I watched Mom show the kids how to hunt for shells along the shore, her laughter ringing out over the waves. She pointed out the old driftwood log where we used to build forts, telling stories about the time a crab pinched my toe and I screamed so loud the neighbors came running. The kids listened wide-eyed, and I felt a lump form in my throat. This was her legacy, her way of keeping our family connected to this place. How could I take that away from her? That afternoon, my husband found me sitting alone on the porch, staring out at the water. He sat beside me, silent for a moment before speaking. "You're not a bad person for doing what you thought was right," he said gently. "But she deserves to know. She deserves the truth." I nodded, tears stinging my eyes. "I just wanted to protect her," I whispered. "I thought if I could handle everything, she wouldn't have to worry." He squeezed my hand. Sometimes protecting someone means being honest, even when it hurts. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange, I watched my family gather around the fire pit. Mom roasted marshmallows with the kids, her face glowing in the firelight. My brother sat beside her, his arm around her shoulders, and for a moment we all looked like the family we used to be. But beneath the surface, tension simmered. I could feel my brother's eyes on me, could sense my husband's quiet support, and I knew I couldn't keep the secret much longer. That night, as I lay in bed listening to the distant sound of waves, I replayed the day in my mind. Every laugh felt like a lie, every moment tinged with the knowledge of what was coming. I thought about all the summers we'd spent here, the memories we'd made, and the future we were about to lose. I wondered if Mom would ever forgive me, or if this would be the moment that broke us apart for good. I drifted into a restless sleep, haunted by dreams of empty rooms and locked doors, of my mother's face crumpling in disbelief. I woke before dawn, heart racing, knowing that the time for secrets was running out. The house felt different in the early morning light, quieter, heavier, as if it too was waiting for the truth to finally come out. The next day dawned bright and clear, the kind of morning that made the whole world feel fresh and full of promise. Mom was already up, bustling around the kitchen, making a list of things she wanted to do with the kids before the weekend was over. She talked about repainting the porch swing, planting new flowers in the garden, maybe even fixing the old dock so we could all go fishing like we used to. Her voice was light, full of hope, and every word felt like a stone in my chest. She was planning for a future that didn't exist, dreaming about summers that would never come. I tried to keep up, to smile and nod and pretend I was just as excited as she was. But my mind kept drifting, replaying the conversation with my brother, the look in his eyes when he told me I had to tell her. I felt trapped, caught between the past and the future, between what I wanted to protect and what I knew I had to do. Every time Mom mentioned a new project or a family tradition she wanted to revive, I felt the walls closing in a little tighter. By midday, more family had arrived. My aunt and uncle pulled up in their old station wagon, honking the horn and waving as they unloaded coolers and beach chairs. My cousin Sarah came too, her arms full of groceries, her kids tumbling out of the car and racing straight for the water. The house was suddenly alive with noise and chaos, laughter echoing through the halls, the smell of sunscreen and grilled burgers filling the air. For a moment, it almost felt like old times. But beneath the surface, tension simmered. My aunt cornered me in the kitchen, her voice low and conspiratorial. "Your mother seems so happy to be back," she said, glancing over her shoulder. "It's good for her, after everything she's been through." I nodded, forcing a smile, but I could feel her eyes on me, searching for something. "You're not yourself," she said quietly. "Why are you acting so strange? Is something wrong?" I shook my head, brushing her off, but the question lingered in the air. As the day wore on, old resentments began to surface. My uncle complained about the state of the roof, muttering about how much work the house needed. Sarah argued with her mother about who would inherit what, her voice sharp and defensive. My brother and I barely spoke, the distance between us growing with every passing hour. I felt increasingly isolated, surrounded by people but completely alone with my secret. Mom, oblivious to the undercurrents swirling around her, kept making plans. She talked about hosting Thanksgiving at the beach house that year, inviting everyone to stay for the whole week. She pulled out old photo albums, passing them around the table, laughing at pictures of us as kids, sunburned and smiling, covered in sand and salt water. She told stories about Dad, about the time he tried to build a treehouse in the backyard and ended up falling out of the tree, about the way he used to sing off-key lullabies when we couldn't sleep. Her eyes sparkled with memories, and I felt my resolve crumbling. That afternoon, I found myself alone on the porch, staring out at the ocean. The waves crashed against the shore, steady and relentless, a reminder that time moves forward whether we're ready or not. I thought about all the secrets this house had held over the years. The whispered arguments behind closed doors, the tears shed in the middle of the night, the laughter that always seemed to follow. I wondered if the walls would remember us when we were gone, or if they would simply absorb our stories and wait for the next family to fill them. As evening fell, the mood in the house shifted. The kids grew tired and cranky, arguments flared over board games and bedtime routines. My aunt and uncle bickered about who would clean up after dinner, their voices rising and falling like the tide. My brother disappeared for a walk on the beach, leaving his wife to wrangle their children alone. I tried to help, but everything I did felt wrong, as if I was moving through someone else's life. After dinner, Mom sat beside me on the porch swing, her hand resting gently on my knee. "You seem distracted," she said softly. "Is everything okay?" I hesitated, searching for the right words, but all I could manage was a weak smile. "I'm just tired," I lied. She squeezed my hand, her eyes full of concern. "You know you can tell me anything, right?" I nodded, but the words caught in my throat. I wanted to tell her to unburden myself, but I was terrified of what would happen if I did. Later that night, as the house settled into silence, I wandered down the hallway, unable to sleep. I paused outside the guest room, where my aunt and uncle were talking in hushed voices. I couldn't make out every word, but I heard enough to know they were worried about Mom, about her health, about what would happen if she lost the house. My aunt's voice trembled as she said, "She's not as strong as she used to be. This place is all she has left." My uncle sighed, his voice heavy with resignation. "We can't protect her from everything." Their words echoed in my mind as I crept back to my room, my heart pounding. I realized I wasn't the only one keeping secrets, the only one afraid of what the future might bring. We were all clinging to the past, desperate to hold on to something that was already slipping away. That night, I overheard a conversation that made my blood run cold. My cousin Sarah was on the phone in the living room, her voice tense and urgent. "No, she doesn't know yet," she whispered. "But someone's going to tell her soon. It can't stay a secret forever." I froze, panic rising in my chest. The walls felt like they were closing in, the air thick with unspoken truths. I knew then that time was running out, that the secret I'd tried so hard to protect was about to explode. I lay awake for hours, replaying every conversation, every look, every moment of the weekend. I thought about what would happen when Mom found out, about the pain and betrayal she would feel. I wondered if she would ever forgive me, or if this would be the moment that finally broke our family apart. The house, once a place of comfort and safety, now felt like a prison. each room filled with memories I was about to destroy. By morning, I knew I couldn't keep the secret any longer. The truth was coming whether I was ready or not, and when it did, nothing would ever be the same. The morning air was thick with humidity, the kind that clings to your skin and makes every movement feel heavy. I tried to distract myself with chores, scrubbing dishes that didn't need cleaning, folding towels that were already neatly stacked. My nerves were frayed, every sound making me jump. I kept glancing at my phone, half expecting a message from the realtor, half dreading it. The secret was pressing in on me from all sides, and I could feel the walls of the house closing in. Just after lunch, as the family gathered on the back deck, a car pulled into the driveway. I recognized it instantly, the silver sedan with the realty company's logo on the side. My heart dropped. I watched as the realtor stepped out, clipboard in hand, her professional smile already in place. She waved, calling out a cheerful greeting, and I saw Mom's face light up with curiosity. "Who's that?" Mom asked, shading her eyes from the sun. I tried to answer, but my voice caught in my throat. My brother shot me a panicked look, and I could see the color drain from his face. The rest of the family fell silent, sensing the sudden shift in the air. The realtor approached, her heels clicking on the stone path. "Hi there. I'm just here to drop off some paperwork for the new owners. I didn't realize the family would be here this weekend." Her words hung in the air, sharp and unmistakable. I saw Mom's smile falter, confusion clouding her eyes. She looked at me, searching for answers, and I felt my heart shatter. I could see the confusion in Mom's eyes, and I knew I couldn't wait any longer. The moment I'd been dreading was here, and there was no way to avoid it. My hands trembled as I reached for her, guiding her away from the others, down the steps and onto the quiet stretch of sand behind the house. The wind whipped around us, carrying the scent of salt and seaweed, and I struggled to find the words. "Mom," I began, my voice barely above a whisper. "There's something I need to tell you, and I'm so sorry." She stared at me, her eyes wide and unblinking, waiting for the explanation that would make sense of the chaos. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of every lie, every half-truth, every moment I tried to protect her from the reality I'd created. I told her everything: the late-night phone calls with my brother, the mounting bills, the impossible decision we'd made. I explained how we thought we were doing the right thing, how we wanted to spare her the burden of repairs and taxes, how we believed she'd be happier without the constant worry. My words tumbled out in a rush, desperate and raw, and I could see the pain growing in her eyes with every sentence. She didn't say anything at first. She just stood there, staring out at the waves, her shoulders hunched as if she were bracing herself against a storm. I wanted to reach for her to offer comfort, but I didn't know if she would accept it. The silence stretched between us, heavy and unyielding. Finally, she spoke, her voice trembling. "You sold my home without telling me?" The hurt in her words was sharper than any accusation. I nodded, tears streaming down my face. "I'm so sorry, Mom. I thought I was protecting you. I thought it was the right thing to do." She shook her head, wiping at her eyes. "You should have trusted me. You should have let me decide." The rest of the family watched from the deck, their faces etched with worry and regret. My brother joined us on the sand, his own apologies spilling out in broken sentences. Together we tried to explain, to justify, to make her understand. But the damage was done. The truth was out, and there was no taking it back. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the beach, I realized that nothing would ever be the same. The secret I'd carried for so long was finally exposed, and the consequences were more painful than I'd ever imagined. I stood beside my mother, the wind whipping my hair across my face, and waited for her to speak, to forgive, to find some way forward. But all I could do was wait, and hope that love would be enough to heal what I had broken. We stood on the sand, the wind tugging at our hair, the sound of the waves a distant roar behind us. My mother's face was pale, her eyes wide and shining with disbelief. I'd never seen my mother look at me that way before, like I was a stranger, someone she couldn't quite recognize. The silence between us was thick, broken only by the distant laughter of the children playing near the water, oblivious to the storm that had just broken open in our family. "How could you do this without telling me?" she finally asked, her voice trembling with hurt and anger. The words cut through me, sharper than I expected. I tried to answer, but my throat felt tight, my mind racing for something, anything that would make this right. Mom, I thought I was protecting you. I thought if I handled it, you wouldn't have to worry about the money, the repairs, all the stress. She shook her head, tears streaming down her cheeks. You don't get to decide what I can handle. This was my home. My memories. You took that away from me. I reached for her, but she pulled back, her hands clenched at her sides. My brother stepped forward, his own face drawn and pale. It wasn't just her, Mom. I agreed to it too. We thought we were doing the right thing. Mom turned on him, her voice rising. You both thought you knew better than me? After everything we've been through, after all the times I've held this family together, you didn't trust me enough to tell me the truth. The rest of the family gathered on the deck, drawn by the raised voices. My aunt's hand flew to her mouth, my uncle's brow furrowed in concern. My cousin Sarah hovered at the edge, her eyes darting between us, unsure whether to step in or stay silent. The children sensed the tension and fell quiet, watching from a distance. Mom's anger gave way to something deeper, grief. She sank onto the sand, her shoulders shaking as she sobbed. This house was all I had left of your father. Every corner, every creak, every bit of chipped paint, he's here. You took that from me without even asking. I knelt beside her, my own tears falling freely. I'm so sorry, Mom. I never wanted to hurt you. I just wanted to make things easier. I thought if I could carry the burden, you wouldn't have to. She looked at me then, her eyes red and swollen. You can't protect me from pain by lying to me. That's not love. That's fear. Her words hit me with the force of a wave, knocking the breath from my lungs. I realized how much I'd underestimated her strength, how much I'd let my own fear guide my choices. My brother sat down on her other side, his voice breaking. We were scared, Mom. We didn't want to lose you too. We thought if we could just keep things together, keep you safe, maybe we could hold on to what we had. She shook her head, her voice soft but firm. You can't hold on to the past by hiding from the truth. That's not how families work. The rest of the family joined us, forming a circle in the sand. My aunt spoke up, her voice gentle. We all love this place, but it's not the house that makes us a family. It's us. We have to find a way to move forward. My uncle nodded, adding, We've all made mistakes, but we have to face them together. The conversation grew heated as old wounds surfaced. My cousin Sarah accused my brother of always taking charge, of never listening to anyone else's opinion. My aunt brought up past arguments about money, about inheritance, about who did the most for Mom after Dad died. Voices rose, accusations flew, and for a moment it felt like the family was coming apart at the seams. In the middle of it all, Mom stood up, wiping her tears. Enough, she said, her voice steady. We can't change what's happened, but we can decide what we do next. She looked at me, her gaze softer now but still full of pain. I need time. I need to grieve. But I also need you to promise me no more secrets. No more decisions made behind my back. I nodded, my heart aching with regret and relief. I promise, Mom. From now on, we do this together. My brother echoed the promise, and slowly, the rest of the family joined in. We stood there, a broken circle, but a circle nonetheless bound by love, by loss, by the hope that we could find our way back to each other. As the sun set behind us, casting long shadows across the sand, I realized that this confrontation was both an ending and a beginning. The truth was out, the pain laid bare, but in that raw honesty there was also the possibility of healing. We had lost the house, but maybe, just maybe, we hadn't lost each other. After the confrontation, the house felt impossibly quiet, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. Mom retreated to her bedroom, closing the door softly behind her. I stood in the hallway, staring at the faded paint and the family photos lining the walls, feeling the weight of what I'd done settle over me like a heavy blanket. My brother disappeared outside, pacing the length of the porch, while the rest of the family scattered, some to the kitchen, some to the beach, all of us searching for space to process what had just happened. I spent that night alone, listening to the waves and wondering if I'd lost her forever. The sound that had always soothed me now felt like a reminder of everything I'd broken. I replayed the confrontation over and over in my mind, hearing the pain in Mom's voice, seeing the betrayal in her eyes. I wondered if there was anything I could have said or done differently, if there was any way to undo the damage. The next morning, the house was tense and divided. My aunt tried to comfort Mom, insisting that we'd only done what we thought was best, but Mom barely responded. My uncle took my brother's side, arguing that the house was too much for her to handle alone. My cousin Sarah was angry, blaming me for not including her in the decision, for not trusting the family to come together. The air was thick with resentment and regret, every conversation tinged with accusation. I wandered through the house, touching the worn banister, the chipped kitchen tiles, the sun-bleached curtains. Every corner held a memory, a piece of our family's story. I wondered if I'd been selfish, if I'd acted out of fear instead of love. Maybe I'd wanted to be the one who fixed everything, who kept everyone safe, but all I'd done was tear us apart. My husband found me sitting on the back steps, my head in my hands. He sat beside me, silent for a long time before finally speaking. "Maybe you did the right thing, but it doesn't feel that way," he said gently. "You tried to protect her, but sometimes people need to face things themselves. You can't carry it all for her." I nodded, tears slipping down my cheeks. "I just wanted to make it easier. I never wanted to hurt her." He squeezed my hand. "You can't control how people feel. All you can do is be honest, and be there when they're ready." As the day wore on, the fractures in the family grew deeper. Arguments flared over breakfast, old grievances resurfacing as everyone tried to make sense of what had happened. My brother and I barely spoke, each of us lost in our own guilt and regret. Mom stayed in her room, emerging only briefly to make tea, her face drawn and distant. I questioned everything: my motives, my choices, my worth as a daughter. Had I really acted out of love, or had I been trying to avoid my own discomfort, my own fear of change? Was I protecting Mom, or was I protecting myself from the pain of watching her let go? The answers felt slippery, impossible to grasp. That night, as the sun set and the house grew quiet again, I stood on the porch and watched the waves roll in. I thought about all the times I'd come here for comfort, for connection, for a sense of belonging. Now I felt more alone than ever. The family I'd tried so hard to hold together was splintering, and I didn't know if we'd ever find our way back. I realized then that sometimes doing what you think is right can still hurt the people you love. Sometimes there are no easy answers, only the hope that, in time, forgiveness and understanding will find their way through the cracks. The next morning, I woke before dawn, the house still and silent except for the distant sound of the ocean. I slipped outside, needing air, needing space to think. The sky was streaked with pale pink and gold, the world hushed and waiting. I walked along the shore, letting the cold water numb my feet, trying to quiet the storm inside my head. I found my brother sitting on the old driftwood log, staring out at the horizon. He looked tired, older somehow, the weight of the past few days etched into the lines of his face. I sat beside him, neither of us speaking for a long time. Finally, he broke the silence. "You've always put everyone else first. Maybe it's time to put yourself first," he said quietly, not looking at me. His words surprised me. I'd always thought of myself as the fixer, the one who held things together, but maybe I'd been hiding behind that role, afraid to face my own needs. We talked about our childhood, about the way we'd both learned to keep the peace, to smooth over arguments, to sacrifice our own feelings for the sake of the family. I realized how much of my life had been shaped by that pattern, always trying to make things easier for everyone else, always afraid of causing pain or disappointment. Was I really protecting her or just avoiding conflict? The question echoed in my mind, uncomfortable and true. My brother admitted he'd felt the same way, always trying to be strong for Mom after Dad died, always putting her needs before his own. We both carried the weight of unspoken expectations, the silent agreements we'd made to keep the family from falling apart. But in trying to protect her, we'd ended up hurting her more. Later, I called my oldest friend, someone who'd known me since we were kids. I poured out everything: the guilt, the regret, the fear that I'd ruined everything. She listened without judgment, her voice steady and kind. You can't live your whole life for other people, she told me. You have to find your own voice, your own truth. Otherwise, you'll always be lost in someone else's story. Her words stayed with me as I walked back to the house. I thought about all the times I'd silenced myself, all the times I'd chosen peace over honesty, comfort over confrontation. I saw the same patterns in my mother, in my brother, in the way our family had always handled pain. By hiding it, by pretending everything was fine, by sacrificing our own needs for the sake of harmony. For the first time, I wondered what it would mean to put myself first, not out of selfishness, but out of a desire to live honestly, to speak my truth even when it was hard. I realized that real love isn't about protecting people from pain. It's about standing with them in it, about being honest and vulnerable, even when it hurts. When I returned to the house, I found Mom in the kitchen, quietly making tea. She looked up as I entered, her eyes tired but softer than before. I sat down across from her, unsure of what to say, but knowing that I needed to be honest. "I'm sorry for not trusting you," I said. "I was so afraid of losing you, of losing this place, that I forgot how strong you are. I forgot that you deserve the truth, even when it's hard." She reached across the table, taking my hand in hers. "We all make mistakes," she said gently. "What matters is that we learn from them, that we find a way to move forward together." In that moment, I felt something shift inside me, a small, quiet strength I hadn't known I possessed. I realized that I didn't have to carry the weight of the world alone, that it was okay to ask for help, to admit when I was scared or uncertain. I saw my family more clearly, not as perfect or unbreakable, but as people doing their best, just like me. As the day unfolded, I felt lighter, more present. I knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, that there would be more hard conversations, more moments of doubt and pain. But I also knew that I was ready to face them, not as the fixer, not as the peacemaker, but as myself. For the first time, I felt the possibility of healing, not just for my family but for me. I was just beginning to feel a fragile sense of calm settle over the house when the next storm hit. The morning was quiet, the family moving through routines with a tentative truce, everyone still raw but trying. I was in the kitchen pouring coffee when my phone buzzed on the counter. I almost ignored it, but something made me pick it up. The number was unfamiliar, but the voice on the other end was unmistakable, the realtor. Her tone was apologetic but firm. "I'm so sorry to bother you, but the buyers are asking if they can move in early. They're hoping to start renovations next week." My heart dropped. I hadn't expected things to move so quickly. I glanced at Mom, who was humming softly as she watered her plants, completely unaware of this new deadline looming over us. I hung up, my hands shaking. Just when I thought things couldn't get worse, the phone rang again. This time it was my brother, his voice tense. "There's something else you need to know." He hesitated, then told me he'd found a letter from Dad tucked away in an old desk drawer, a letter addressed to Mom, written years ago, about a savings account she never knew existed. The money could have helped with the house, maybe even saved it. The news hit me like a punch. I felt the old guilt and regret surge back, stronger than ever. I gathered the family in the living room, my voice trembling as I explained the buyer's request and the discovery of Dad's letter. The room erupted in confusion and disbelief. Mom looked at me, her face pale. "Why are we only finding out about this now?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I had no answer. The family began to argue again about the money, about the house, about all the things we should have done differently. The fragile peace we built shattered in an instant. I felt my resolve slipping, the weight of every decision pressing down on me. I realized that no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't control everything. Some things were simply out of my hands. As the arguments swirled around me, I stared out the window at the ocean, searching for strength. I knew I had to face this new crisis head-on, to help my family through it, even as I struggled with my own doubts. The future was more uncertain than ever, but I was determined not to run from it. The house felt like it was holding its breath, every room charged with tension and uncertainty. The news about the buyers wanting to move in early, and the discovery of Dad's letter, had left everyone reeling. Arguments had flared and faded, leaving behind a raw, aching silence. I knew I couldn't avoid the truth any longer. I had to face my family, and more importantly, I had to face myself. That evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky in streaks of orange and purple, I called everyone into the living room. My hands trembled as I stood in front of them, but I forced myself to meet their eyes. Mom sat on the edge of the couch, her hands folded tightly in her lap. My brother leaned against the wall, arms crossed, his face unreadable. The rest of the family gathered around, waiting. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of every mistake, every secret, every moment I tried to protect everyone but myself. I can't change what I did, but I can be honest with you now. I began, my voice shaking but steady. I made decisions out of fear of losing this house, fear of losing all of you, fear of not being enough. I thought I was protecting Mom, but I see now that I was just avoiding conflict, avoiding the pain of facing what we were all afraid to admit. I looked at Mom, my heart pounding. I'm sorry for not trusting you. I'm sorry for making choices without you. I know I hurt you and I know I can't take that back. But I want to move forward together with honesty. No more secrets. No more pretending. For the first time I spoke my truth even if my voice shook. I told them how I'd always felt responsible for keeping the family together, how I'd taken on burdens that weren't mine to carry. I admitted that I was scared of change, scared of letting go, scared of not being the daughter everyone expected me to be. The words tumbled out, raw and unfiltered, and I felt something inside me shift. I wasn't hiding anymore. My brother stepped forward, his eyes shining with tears. I should have spoken up sooner. I should have told you about the letter, about the money. I was just as scared as you were. We all were. He turned to Mom, his voice breaking. We thought we were doing the right thing, but we were wrong. I'm sorry. Mom looked at both of us, her face softening. I wish you trusted me. I wish you'd let me be part of the decision. But I understand why you did what you did. I know you love me. I know you were trying to help. She reached for my hand, her grip warm and steady. We can't change the past, but we can decide what kind of family we want to be now. The rest of the family joined in, voices overlapping, apologies, confessions, promises to do better. Old wounds were acknowledged, not ignored. For the first time, we talked openly about our fears, our regrets, our hopes for the future. It wasn't easy. There were tears, raised voices, moments when I thought we might fall apart all over again. But there was also a sense of relief, of release, as if the house itself was exhaling after holding so much pain for so long. I realized then that my transformation wasn't about fixing everything or making everyone happy. It was about being honest, about letting go of the need to control, about trusting that we could face the truth together. I felt lighter, freer, as if I'd finally stepped out from behind the walls I'd built around myself. As the conversation wound down, Mom pulled me into a hug. I love you, she whispered. No house, no secret. Nothing will ever change that. I held her tight, feeling the truth of her words settle deep in my heart. That night, as I lay in bed, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't known in years. The future was still uncertain. The house would soon belong to someone else, and our family would have to find new ways to stay connected. But I knew we would face it together with honesty and love. I had found my voice, and in doing so, I had found my way back to my family. The days that followed felt different, quieter, but also lighter. The tension that had gripped the house began to ease, replaced by a gentle, tentative hope. We all moved a little slower, more careful with our words, more willing to listen. There were still moments of sadness, of course. Packing up the house was bittersweet, every box filled with memories, every drawer a reminder of what we were leaving behind. But there was also laughter and even a sense of relief, as if we were finally allowed to breathe again. Mom and I spent a long afternoon together in the living room, sorting through old photo albums and keepsakes. We talked about Dad, about the early days at the beach house, about the dreams she'd had for our family. There were tears, but there was also forgiveness. Maybe it's time for new memories wherever we are, she said, her voice soft but sure. I nodded, feeling the truth of her words settle in my chest. We didn't need the house to be a family. We just needed each other. My brother and I found our way back to each other, too. We apologized for the things we'd left unsaid, for the ways we tried to protect everyone but ourselves. We promised to be more honest, to share the burdens instead of carrying them alone. The rest of the family followed suit, small gestures of kindness and understanding slowly stitching us back together. On the last night, we gathered on the porch one final time, watching the sun set over the water. The sky was painted in gold and lavender, the waves gentle and steady. We shared stories, toasted to the past, and made quiet promises for the future. There was sadness, yes, but also gratitude for the years we'd had, for the love that remained, for the chance to begin again. As I locked the door for the last time, I felt a wave of emotion, grief, relief, hope all tangled together. Letting go of the house didn't mean letting go of us. I realized that the real home we'd built was in our hearts, in the way we showed up for each other, in the courage it took to face the truth and move forward. I walked away from the beach house feeling lighter, stronger, and more myself than I had in years. The future was uncertain, but I was no longer afraid. I knew that whatever came next, we would face it together, and that was enough. In the months that followed, life slowly found a new rhythm. The beach house belonged to someone else now, and sometimes I'd catch myself reaching for my keys, forgetting that I couldn't just drive down and let the salt air wash over me. But the ache of loss softened with time, replaced by something steadier, a quiet resilience I hadn't known I possessed. We started new traditions, small at first. Sunday dinners at Mom's apartment, where we'd crowd around her tiny table and laugh about how we used to complain that the beach house was too cramped. My brother and I called each other more often, not just to check in on Mom, but to talk about our own lives, our own dreams. The family, though changed, was still a family. We're still a family, even if everything else has changed, Mom said one evening, her eyes shining with both sadness and pride. I found myself growing in ways I hadn't expected. I learned to set boundaries, to speak up when something mattered, to let go of the need to fix everything for everyone else. I realized that my worth wasn't tied to how well I could hold things together, but to how honestly I could show up as a daughter, a sister, a friend, and most importantly, as myself. There were hard days, of course. Holidays felt different, and sometimes the grief would sneak up on me when I least expected it. But there was also joy, new memories being made, new connections forming. I watched Mom find her own strength too, building a life that honored the past but wasn't trapped by it. Looking back, I never thought I'd survive that weekend, but I did, and I'm stronger for it. I learned that letting go doesn't mean forgetting, and that real love is found in the willingness to face the truth, even when it hurts. Our family isn't perfect, but it's real, and that's enough for me. If you've ever had to make an impossible choice, you're not alone. I know what it's like to lie awake at night, replaying every decision, wondering if you did the right thing or if you've just made everything worse. I know the fear of hurting someone you love, the guilt that comes from trying to protect them and failing, the ache of watching something precious slip through your fingers. But I also know that even in the middle of heartbreak, there's a chance for healing and growth. Looking back, I realized that families aren't held together by secrets or by pretending everything is fine. They're held together by honesty, by forgiveness, and by the courage to face the truth even when it's painful. Sometimes the hardest truths set us free. They force us to confront what we've been avoiding, to let go of old patterns, and to find new ways to love each other. If you're facing a difficult decision, I hope you'll remember that you don't have to carry it alone. Reach out to the people who care about you. Be honest about your fears and your hopes. Trust that even if things fall apart, you can find your way back to each other. It might not look the way you imagine, but it can still be beautiful. I've learned that letting go isn't the same as giving up. It's about making space for something new, about trusting that you're strong enough to handle whatever comes next. I've learned that it's okay to put yourself first sometimes, to speak your truth, to ask for what you need. And I've learned that love, real, messy, and perfect love, is worth fighting for, even when it means facing the things you're most afraid of. So if you're standing at a crossroads, unsure of what to do, know that you're not alone. Take a deep breath, trust yourself, and remember, you are stronger than you think. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I know it wasn't easy, and if you've made it this far, I hope you found something here that resonated with you. Family can be complicated, and sometimes the choices we make out of love can lead to pain and misunderstanding. But I truly believe that sharing our stories helps us heal, and it reminds us that we're not alone in what we're going through. Have you ever had to keep a secret from your family? Tell me in the comments. I'd love to hear your story, whether it's about a difficult decision, a moment of honesty, or a time when you had to let go of something important. Your experiences matter, and you never know who might find comfort or courage in your words. If this story touched you, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. Maybe you know someone who's struggling with a family conflict, or someone who's facing a tough choice and feels alone. Sometimes just knowing that someone else has been there can make all the difference. Don't forget to subscribe if you want to hear more real-life family dramas and stories of transformation. I have so many more to share, stories about forgiveness, about finding your voice, about the messy, beautiful ways families come together and fall apart and come together again. Your support means the world to me, and it helps me keep telling these stories that matter. Thank you again for being here, for listening, and for being part of this community. Stay tuned for the next story. It's one you won't want to miss.